All right, hey there, scholars. Mrs. Bowers here. I just wanted to give you some extra homework help for our new chapter, which is adding and subtracting fractions that have unlike denominators. So the first thing I want to remind you of, and we've already done this for 2 days in math instruction, is that you can use a common denominator or a common multiple of 2 or more denominators to write fractions that name the same part of a whole. There's a lot of vocabulary I'm throwing at you, but the more we hear it, the more we'll get accustomed to it as well. So in order to get to a common denominator between 2 fractions is 2 different strategies that I taught you in class. One way is you can multiply the denominators together. That's one way to get a common denominator. Or another way, which is the way I'm really pushing my scholars to get to, is to make a list of multiples of the denominators. And once you do that, you can find your least common multiple. So a multiple that both of these denominators have in common, that will then become your common denominator. So let's use this work in actual practice. I'm going to do a couple of examples from tonight's homework, and I will go through step by step on how to solve. I will be explaining my thinking as well. Okay, so I'll start with question number 2 on tonight's homework. So if you can look there as well. The problem that we have is 3/4 minus 3/8. So the first thing I want my students to notice is that those denominators are unlike. The units are different. They are not the same. So we're going to identify the denominators, 4 and 8. And I'm going to use the strategy of listing the multiples of the denominators in order to find the LCM, the least common multiple. So I might use a T-chart. You can either list your multiples vertically or horizontally. I'm just going to do it vertically. That's the way I'm accustomed to doing it. So I'll use a T-chart for my multiples. So the multiples of 4, we know that multiples is just skip counting, which is a strategy you learned in 1st and 2nd grade, how to skip count. So the multiples of 4 include 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. The list could go on. I only suggest maybe listing the first 5 or 6. Next, the multiples of 8. We have 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. You can continue your list. I just suggest listing the first 5 or 6. I now want to check both of my lists. What numbers do these lists have in common? Well, they both have an 8. They both have a 16. If you continued your list, we also have 24 is the same. But our job is to find the least common multiple. This way, at the end, you don't have to simplify or reduce your fractions that much. So this is why I suggest it this way. It just makes your life a little bit easier down the road. All right, so my least common multiple is going to be 8. That is the smallest number both of these denominators have in common. So I'm going to now rewrite my fractions with my LCM, my least common multiple, as my now common denominator. So 3/4 is now going to be rewritten out of 8. And my second fraction, 3/8, will also have the LCM, which is also 8. All right, so I need to now compare my fractions. I need to think in my head. Now, this is why it's very important to know your multiplication facts very fluently, because it makes this process a lot easier. So I'm going to think 4 times 2 is 8. So 3 times 2 is 6. The rule you learned in 4th grade is whatever you do to your denominator, you have to do to your numerator. Next, check out my other fraction. I need to think, okay, 8 times 1 is 8. So 3 times 1 is 3. And now I can subtract to get my final answer. 6/8 minus 3/8. Notice that I can now subtract because my denominators are now the same. The common denominator is 8. So 6/8 minus 3/8 is 3/8. If you have any more questions, comments, concerns, please rewind the video, and also come to class tomorrow prepared with any questions you might have. All right, guys, good luck.